Deleted session, December 3rd, 1977. Good evening. Now, in basic terms, you form your reality, privately and en masse, through your beliefs, of course, and those beliefs cause you to organize your psychic world in certain fashions. You use such belief organizations to concentrate upon certain data and ignore others, so that consciously and unconsciously you organize inner and outer stimuli, so that it makes sense according to your beliefs, and forms, therefore, a more or less dependable framework in which action and response are possible. History is written according to the present beliefs of a historian in his time. As you know, your Western world followed its mixture of Christianity, Darwinism, and Freudian psychology, because those ideas still are largely in the mainstream of your society. Your television news, newspapers, and magazines are invisibly slanted. The news is invisibly organized to fit certain patterns, so that when you read or hear it, it carries the seemingly indelible mark, confirming the basic beliefs of the culture. I am not speaking strictly of political parties or political newspapers or of any specialized journals or magazines, but of the overall pattern displayed by all of your mass communications. You can see easily, however, the highly specialized, intensified view of the world that is apparent in scientific journals. These are in sharp conflict with, for example, religious journals. If you look, you can easily become aware of these specialized words. Regardless of these differences, the overall picture is largely the same. You cannot treat yourself, your body, the natural world. You are everywhere presented with the evidence. The headlines speak of problems between nations, mass and private crime, illness, the misuse of animals, man's stupidity and cruelty, so it seems that the species is nearly insane. Let us look at the invisible organization behind such material, however. I do not want to shock you, but there are quite as many cases of honest heroism as there are crimes committed. There are patterns of highly constructive change that never show, as far as your media is concerned. There are as many people recovering from diseases, even by themselves, as those who succumb. There are compensating, creative earth patterns occurring in terms of energy, but these do not show. If you do not understand this, then you will take your newspapers and other news unthinkingly, thinking that a fairly adequate picture of world events is being portrayed. A picture that only deepens the negative feelings that are behind the invisible organization of such data. In such a way, you miss any significant evidence to the contrary. Privately, then, you will to some extent or another have to take up defenses against that reality, as though as you think that your physical information about the world, through newspapers and so forth, presents a fairly adequate, objective view of events, then all of the evidence to the contrary will literally be invisible. For you will continue to organize your view of the world in the old way. You will think, for example, when a story about misuse of political power is concerned, that's only one story. How many more politicians do the same thing? For the newspapers also act in a suggestive fashion, further programming your expectations. In a way, you organize your physical experience as you do your inner life, through association, through emotional association. I am not simply speaking of sensationalism in newspapers or on TV. When you read the news or hear it, however, because of cultural beliefs, you are programmed to behave in a certain fashion, in a certain validity. Similarly, the concept of Freud and Darwin, and the most unfortunate aspects of Christian pessimism. This is not done with any ill intent. Individuals collect the news and write it. To many people, some kind of organization, even one that is wobbly, is far better than facing the task of setting up an entirely new view of reality. The inner structure of most of your organizations and institutions are based on those old precepts. Individual lives have been constructed along those frameworks. You made a remark earlier this evening to the effect that the individual could do nothing in the face of such organized behavior, a remark that by now I am sure you regret voicing. Ron noted. I laughed. She said those ideas to begin with began with individuals. The people who make and report the news are individuals. The people who read or view the news are individuals. To some extent, through the books, you are helping people alter their psychic organizations, to look at the world in a different fashion, and therefore to view a different world, a world in which their experiences are different than they would have been otherwise. Many people are already beginning to alter their picture of the world, but they are afraid of trusting their own intuitions. Consider the lengthy letter from the young English gentleman. In a large measure, the world in which he now lives is a highly more enjoyable and productive one than it was before. His experiences are entirely different than they would have been. In terms of probability, he took a new probable road, which means that his individual impact upon the world and everyone he meets will also be different and more creative than it would have been before. Unless Ruber does, no one will remark about this young man. No one will trace the beneficial change in his life and their effects upon others. People generally have been taught to play down their own heroism and to concentrate upon man's weaknesses, and so your newspapers contain categorized fact upon fact, emphasizing man's errors and stupidities. It has become virtuous to keep track of this, as if concentrating upon errors will do anything but compound them. I am again not telling you to be blind to physical events, but to realize that the news media and your organizations are not giving you an objective view of the world, but a view compounded and composed by Freudian and Darwinian beliefs. I would also like to remind you both of the difference between direct experience and second-handed tales. Examine your own personal experience with physical reality now and then, when you have a moment. Ram noted with irony. She said, relying only upon your own experience. It is impossible, I know, and not really beneficial, to try to separate yourselves entirely from the cultural world. But you should understand the make-up of that world, and be able now and then at least to separate your private experiences from it, even though they must occur in its context. How many crimes have you each personally encountered? How many people have been generally well disposed toward you? How many have been actively vicious? What has actually been your own experience with war, with prejudice, with hatred? How much of your view of reality has been formed by direct experience? And now much has been formed through secondary sources, such as communications media, or tales brought to you by others. This is an excellent exercise because it puts you in touch with your own experience, and at least gives you a point from which you can make judgments of your own. Your neighbor Joe had pneumonia, or a cold, or the sniffles. To Margaret, he had pneumonia, because she organizes reality in a certain fashion, and by slightly exaggerating certain data, she then uses it to reinforce certain beliefs. She then must take steps, of course, to protect herself against illness. And she is in fear of robbers for the same reason. She does not trust her body, nor her fellow men. She watches news for stories of illnesses and robbers. Take your break. Those ideas do not exist alone. They have an emotional effect. To some extent, it is because you have accepted the newspaper's view of reality as real, that you have allowed yourself to dwell upon certain attitudes about your fellows, so that, for example, sometimes the world does not seem to deserve great art, or that you even feel you do not want to share your work with the stupid bastards. Rob noted, they said, staring at me. I laughed again. They said, I am trying to induce Ruber to drop his muscular armor. In the words of his experience, he does not need it. His direct experience has not included it. The cruel adult world that he must protect himself against. It certainly does not include a frightening psychic world, actually or otherwise. Any fears he had there he picked up through reading or through the reports of others, so let him also separate his private experience in that respect. Collecting such distorted data about inner or outer worlds can only make an individual build up defenses or want to. The newspaper world is then highly distorted, organized in such a manner that its data reinforce negative beliefs, and constantly give evidence only of negative patterns. These then are taken as an objective picture of the fact world. All of the heroism and private and even mass triumphs and the good intent have been left out. The world is seen as a patient, sick in body, insane of mind, a thing that needs treatment. A Freudian and Darwinian monster. Even with your own changed beliefs, the two of you still see that mirror when you read a newspaper and do not realize the invisible organizations behind the news. It makes it seem foolhardy to relax, doesn't it? All of these things, to some extent, stand in the way of Gruber's recovery. They point precisely to those areas in which both of you heartily agreed. Though Gruber's way of getting work done was not yours, this session must be taken into consideration with other ones, for I am making certain points here that are important, but that do not, of course, stand alone. You can, if you prefer, forget terms like hypnosis, but between tonight and the next Saturday night's session, I strongly advise that you take a half hour. It can be nap time, or any time. Have Ruber lie off the bed comfortably. You sit beside him or lie on the bed as you prefer, but verbally reassure him. Tell his body that the muscles can relax, that you are there, and it is safe for him to let go. Use relaxation techniques, as in hypnotic techniques, if you want. I have mentioned this before. Often I do not state the reasons for such suggestions. To some extent underlined and qualified, you hypnotized yourself into your view of reality. You helped Ruber form his. You have not taken my suggestion before for a very simple reason. Part of you, Joseph, was not ready to reassure Ruber in such a fashion, for you were not certain that it was safe to relax in such a world, and you did not want to lie to Ruber because you believed the newspaper world so thoroughly, with all, now, of its implications, as Ruber did. Such an event represents an intent on both of your parts. You see, a joint effect, a changing of bodily response to a situation. The newspapers act as hypnotic suggestion of a potent kind. There is no one present who can confirm the newspaper's evidence. You cannot ask questions of a newspaper or of a news program. The entire pattern of these latest stations deals with your inner reactions to your beliefs about yourselves and the world. Tonight, I am dealing with a specific area. To some extent, however, this newspaper beliefs shut you off from full utilization from framework's potency. Helpfully, I am teaching you to reorganize your inner lives so that you attract the best to yourself from inner and outer reality. Your suggestions to Ruber along psychic lines were excellent, that he do more energy experiments. His own intention to try out-of-body experiments again is also excellent, because it shows a change of intent. I want you to encourage his bodily relaxation in the same manner, creatively. You do not take chances, creatively or any other way, unless you allow your curiosity and exuberance some free play. If the world seems too unsafe, you set up projections often against shadows, because you have accepted those shadows unthinkingly as facts. Those ideas mentioned earlier even inhibit the free creative flow of our books into the world to some extent, for you do not have as clear a channel as possible. Never compare the sale of our books to the sale of other books. Different realities are involved, and you can then get involved with cross purposes. I have said what I intended to say. Again, these sessions are more packed than you realize. Each suggestion I give you is not only given for a reason, but has within it potentials that of course remain latent unless the suggestion is followed. Do you have any questions? Rob said, no, I guess not. Say said, there is a pattern to your own dream life, however, that is emerging, and the suggestion I gave you this evening, involving Ruber's relaxation, is rather double-barreled in that regard. James had a rather good remark, that the hypnotist must first hypnotize himself, and that is also a double-barreled remark, for my suggestion will benefit both of you also in other areas. Now, what I want and what I get from you too is sometimes different. I want to establish a habit, beginning with tonight's suggestions, with you reassuring Ruber. For a while, I would like that done twice weekly. Then, however, I would like you each, for 1/2 hour twice a week, to use your own separate relaxation techniques. Such exercises state and reinforce your intent. Reinforce it through physical action, and the relaxation will set you free in your psychic endeavors, bringing your nightly dreams into clearer focus, because you are setting up consciously a better relationship between your mind and your body. I would prefer that those exercises not be forgotten, for I know their benefit and obsession. Ralph said, thank you, Seth. Say said, a fond good evening. Ralph said, the same to you.